search my soul. I shall search my very soul.
Oh my God.
I shall search my very soul. I shall search my very soul.
Why is that not doing that? Oh my God.
Seven, 2, 4, 6, 9, 8, 3, 3, 9, 0 is not available.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get started in a couple minutes. Hopefully y'all can hear me. I posted a reading from yesterday, and that's what's up right now. And this is more of the traditional, what you'd see on the task test. So I'll wait a couple minutes and then go ahead and get started.
sorry.
Hey, that's all right. Can you see if, so it looks like I've got my, hopefully my GD practice thing up there. Can you log in and see?
I see. Yep.
Okay.
I just heard your voice talking to me.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yep.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Like I mentioned, especially for science and social studies, this might be a traditional question you might see. So you might have a reading passage, and then there's some questions that follow. So what I think would be the best thing for you guys to do is go down to the bottom and read the 4 questions they're going to ask you. So number 1 says, which of the following is not one of the major forces acting on airplane takeoff? So one of those 5 has nothing to do with an airplane taking off. So you're going to, when we go back and read this, we're going to look for one of these 5 that has nothing to do with the airplane taking off. Okay. The second question, which of the following actions would increase the speed of an airplane? So there's something in those 5 that's going to increase the speed, okay? The third one, which of the following is necessary for an airplane to take off? So once again, in the reading, one of those things is going to state what is necessary for an airplane to take off. And the fourth one, for what reason do commercial airlines fly at high altitudes where the air is thin? Okay, so we're going to look for a reason why airlines fly at higher altitudes as opposed to where the air is thin. All right, so we kind of know what we're looking for now. So we're going to go back to 1. Which of the following is not one of the major forces acting on an airplane at takeoff? So we're looking for something that's not a major force, okay? So we're going to go back up to the top, and we're going to read that first paragraph. And it says, an airplane flies because the pressure below its wings is greater than the air pressure above its wings, causing lift. The shape of the wings cause a difference in air pressure. The top part is curved, so air flowing over it must speed up to travel a greater distance. The fast-flowing air causes a drop in air pressure. The bottom is flat, so the airspeed is slower. The slower flowing air is under greater pressure. The difference in pressure between the air above and under the wing causes lift. As a plane increases its speed to take off, the airflow over the wings increases lift enough to counteract the force of the gravity, measured by the plane's weight holding the plane on the ground. Besides lift and weight, airplanes are acted by a force of thrust and drag. Thrust is the force that propels a plane forward in the air. It's provided by the airplane's engines, either by a propeller or a jet. Counteracting thrust is a type of friction called drag. Drag is created because an airplane is moving through a substance, air, and must push aside the air in order to pass. Okay, so we're going to go back and kind of unpack that. So the first question, which of the following is not one of the major forces acting on an airplane at takeoff? Okay, so thrust. We had something about thrust in there, and if we go back to, it says, besides lift and weight, airplanes are acted upon by forces of thrust and drag. Thrust is the force that propels a plane forward in the air. It's provided by the airplane's engines, either by means of propeller or a jet. Counteracting thrust is a type of friction called drag. So right there, we know that thrust and drag are major forces in the airplane taking off. So what you'd want to do then is go down and probably cross off thrust and drag, because we know those are both forces, okay? So we know those aren't going to be the answers. So we're going to go back and look at the first one up above that. An airplane flies because the air pressure below its wings is greater than the pressure above its wings, causing lift. Okay, so there's lift number 5. We know that lift is also basically a force. Okay, so we're going to cross off lift. So we're down just to gravity and magnetism. So do we see either one of those in the opening paragraph? So we know we can cross that out and find the correct answer. Let's see. An airplane flies because the air pressure below its wings is greater than the air pressure above its wings, causing lift. The shape of the wings causes difference in air pressure. The top part is curved, so air flowing must speed up and travel a greater distance. The fast-flowing air causes a drop in pressure. The bottom is flat, so airspeed is slower. The slow-flowing air is under greater pressure. The difference in pressure between air above and air causes lift. As a plane increases its speed to take off, the air flows over the wings cause a lift to counteract the force of gravity. So there we have gravity, and that's basically the plane's weight. So we're going to cross off gravity. So the only thing that wasn't mentioned is number 4. So that's going to be the correct answer for 1. So hopefully you guys, when you just read through that, you're going to realize all 4 of those 5 things were listed as a major factor for an airplane to take off. The only one that isn't is number 4. So that's going to be the correct answer because that's not a major force. Okay. So number 2, we're going to do the same thing. Number 2, which of the following actions would increase the speed of an airplane? Okay. So we're going to look at these. Decreasing the flow of fuel to the engine, maybe. Pulling up the landing gear. Using one engine rather than all engines. Letting the wings flap. Letting down the wings flaps or letting down the landing gear. Which of the following actions would increase the speed of an airplane? Okay. So one thing that we mentioned there is drag. Okay, it says counteracting thrust, a type of friction called drag. Drag is created because an airplane is moving through a substance air and must push the air aside in order to pass. Okay, so drag would be something that's basically would be slowing the plane down. Okay, it might be something hanging off the plane or something. When the plane's going to the air, it's causing basically the air to hit something and slow the plane down. So if you look at those, if you have your landing gear down, those are the wheels, basically. That's when we land. Some of you that have flown know when you're getting ready to land, they drop basically the wheels and the plane starts to slow down. So when the landing gear is down, that's causing more drag because it's causing friction in the air. So for number 2, it would just be pulling up basically the landing gear. And that makes sense because when something's hanging down, air would be hitting that landing gear and it's going to slow you down. So pulling up the landing gear is going to increase basically the speed of the plane. And some of you, when you take off, you know, the wheels start basically going on the runway. Then as soon as you get enough speed, they pull up the wheels and you take off. And that really increases the speed. Okay. So that would be basically number 2, pulling up the landing gear. Okay, so let's go to 3. And this, which of the following is necessary for an airplane to take off? Okay, and we're gonna go back up to that first paragraph. And it talks about an airplane flies because the air pressure below its wings is greater than the air pressure above its wings, causing lift. Okay, so lift is really what gets us flying. Okay, so when we look at 3, which of the following is necessary for an airplane to take off? Okay, and it says lift must be greater than weight, lift must be greater than thrust, lift must be greater than drag, drag must be greater than thrust, or thrust must be greater than lift. Okay, so it's all about, the concepts are all lift, thrust, and drag. Okay, so we want to look at basically, make sure we know exactly what lift is. And that talks about that in the second paragraph. It says, besides lift and weight, airplanes are acted upon by forces of thrust and drag. Thrust is a force that propels a plane forward in the air, and it's provided by the airplane's engines, either by propeller or jet. Most of our airplanes are jet propelled now. And that says counteracting thrust is a type of friction called drag. And drag is created because an airplane is moving through the air and it must push the air aside in order to pass. Similar to a car, you guys, when a car goes, obviously there's always air out there. And when you basically hit like the accelerator in a car, you're basically the car going fast. But you guys know, if any of you ever put your arm out the window when basically you're driving, the air blows your hand back. So there's air there, and all the car is doing is pushing that air aside. Okay. So as far as the airplane goes, it's going to be about lift. So basically, if you look at these, the correct answer would be number 1. Lift must be greater than the weight. Okay. So basically, the engines will create basically all that force when you take off, and the force they're creating is greater than the drag from basically and the weight of the plane. So the engines will propel it to basically get up in the air, and that basically lift must be actually greater than the weight of the plane. Okay, so number 3 would be number 1. Okay, and the last one would be number 4. For what reasons do commercial airlines fly at higher altitudes where the air is thin? Okay, and that one you could probably figure out. The thinner the air, the less drag there's going to be. Okay, as you get higher up, the air gets thinner. And just like anything, like if you're in like, let's say mud, for example, there can be thick mud and thin mud. Okay, so if you're driving, we'll use a car. If you take your car off-road, if you have a truck or something, okay, is it going to be able to go faster in really like the thick mud or the thin mud? And the answer would be the thin mud. And number 4, it's the same basically reason. When you get up in thinner air, there's less resistance because the air isn't as heavy. That's why planes want to get up to between 20 and 30,000 feet, because the air is thinner and there's less resistance, or what we call drag, on the plane. Okay, so number 4 would be drag. And if you go up, it talks about counteracting thrust, a type of friction called drag. Drag is created because an airplane is moving through a substance, air, and it must push the air aside in order to pass. Okay, so the thinner the air, the faster the plane is going to go. Okay, that's why when the plane takes off, it tries to get up to about 20 or 30,000 feet, because the air gets thinner as we get higher, and the plane can travel faster. Okay, so really what all they're trying to do is they're trying to get as little drag as possible. And the higher you go, the thinner the air becomes, and there's going to be less drag on the plane. So that would be number 4. That would be to reduce drag. Okay. And if you wanted to just eliminate those, you would look at, you don't want, for number 5, you would never want to increase friction. Friction is going to slow you down. Okay, so we will cross that one out. To increase weight, number 3, that doesn't really make any sense. Okay, because the weight of the plane is going to be the same whether you're flying low or high, so it has nothing to do with the weight. Number 1, to increase lift, you've already basically, if you look back up at this, you're already lifting off. Okay, so when we talk about lift, it doesn't really matter because that wouldn't be a factor. It's basically all about the friction, and the friction has to do with basically drag. Okay, so it's really about the thin air. So that would be number 4, to reduce the drag. Okay, and one thing I would suggest to you guys, if you're reading this on the test, go ahead and once you've read the questions, you might want to underline some of the words you see in the question. So if you have to go back, you can see kind of, you've underlined like drag, thrust, gravity, and lift. So you can just go back and see what that is. Okay, that would be another basically suggestion. You maybe underline basically what thrust is, what drag is, what gravity is, what lift is. Okay, So then when other questions come up, you can go back to that one. Okay. I'm going to move on to the second one here. And this is about an MRI. If some of you have ever gotten an MRI, they put you in a tube. And let me just read the paragraph. That's sometimes if they see, if you think you might have like a torn ligament or thing in your body, they'll put you in they give you an MRI. And basically, it's called a magnetic resonance imaging, MIR. This is how it works. The charged particles and atoms, the electrons and protons, are always spinning, producing a magnetic field. And they usually spin in random directions. Inside the MIR machine, however, a powerful magnetic field causes the protons to spin of hydrogen atoms, which are everywhere in the body, to line up with it. The machine then emits radio waves about 40 million hertz. This frequency switches the magnetic poles of hydrogen protons. When the waves are turned off, the magnetic poles of protons flip back, emitting radio signals. The MRI machine records the radio signals and converts them into an image of tissue. Because the amount of hydrogen in different types of tissue is different, the images can distinguish one type of tissue from another, providing an excellent diagnostic tool. Okay. So, MRI technology. What does it use? Okay. So, if you just look at that paragraph, basically it talks about radio waves and magnetic fields. Okay. So number one, it says heat and motion. Heat and motion aren't even mentioned in there. Emotion is a little bit, but not heat. X-rays and film, it doesn't mention anything about film, doesn't mention anything about X-rays. Number four says gamma rays and beta particles. That's not mentioned in there. And number five is ultrasound, and ultrasound isn't mentioned in there. So if you just did process of elimination, you could basically cross all those off, and the only thing you're left with is number three, magnetic fields and radio waves. Okay, and number six, before going an MRI, patients must remove all metal jewelry and braces, must inform technicians of metal implants such as pins used in repairing fractures. Why? Okay, this one, metal is uncomfortable to the patient. Well, that's really not it. Most of us, some of us wear watches, necklaces. Metal really isn't uncomfortable. Metal can be overheated here in the MRI. There's not really heat in the MRI, so that's not going to be it. Number three, metal will interfere with the magnetic fields. That one's a possibility, so we'll keep that one. Four, metal would interfere with the hydrogen atoms, possibly. And five, metal can scratch inside of the machine. Probably not a big deal. So we're going to cross five out because we know that's not it, and then we're going to cross one and two off. So it just leaves us with three and four. And basically, if we look at that, it doesn't mention hydrogen atoms. So we know four is not going to be it. So it only leaves us with three. That means metal would interfere with the magnetic fields. Okay, so we're just going to circle three, and just by the process of elimination, we've eliminated all the other answers. And the last one is MRI machines are extremely expensive to buy and operate. When they first came out, hospitals and medical offices rushed to buy them. However, in many areas today, hospitals and medical offices share the use of a centrally located machine. Why? To provide better patient care, maybe. To make diagnosis more accurate. It has something to do with the diagnosis, basically. So we're going to cross that one out. To make access to MRIs more convenient to patients. That's probably not going to be it. To make MRIs more convenient to physicians, that's not going to be it. It has nothing to do with convenience for doctors or patients. Reduce the cost using MRI technology. Okay, so that's about medical offices sharing a centrally located machine. So what that might mean is like Genesee Hospital, Highland Hospital, they have one or two MRI machines between, a couple hospitals, and they can send their patients to a office that has an MRI machine, okay? Like it says, these things are very expensive. So really what it comes down to is the cost. And the answer that talks about cost is number 5. And it says to reduce the cost of using an MRI technology. And that would be the best answer because like it says, they are expensive. And just like, you know, sharing things sometimes can reduce the cost. Similar, like, you know, if you guys lived in a house together and we're all doing all this stuff online, if you guys shared a computer, obviously it would reduce the cost because not everyone have to get a computer. Just like now, not every hospital has to have an MRI, especially like in the same city. They can just have one location where there's a couple MRI machines and everyone gets sent there. So really number 7 is just about the cost. Okay, that would be number 5. And once again, the best thing to do is, as you know an answer isn't right, just go ahead and cross it off. Okay? Hopefully that was helpful. The one thing I didn't mention, we didn't do it on this one, is you want to go down and read the questions first, which I didn't do and I apologize. So before you read this paragraph, you'd want to go and read all the answers. So kind of you know what you're looking for. But we know it's about MRIs because the title says that. Or in the first paragraph, excuse me. So if you went and read the questions, you kind of, when you go back and read the paragraph, you know what you're looking for. Hopefully that was helpful. We'll continue to work on kind of these multiple choice questions because on the task test, most everything is multiple choice. So hopefully that was helpful. Just a reminder, tomorrow I'll be doing a social studies one similar. We'll be looking at multiple choice questions. And I believe Casey is getting ready to do a live math class shortly. So if you have any questions, just email me. And hopefully I'll see you guys, some of you tomorrow at 10 o'clock for my social studies one. Thank you so much and have a great day, you guys.